When you're a marine biologist, you get to do all sorts of cool things, like studying fish behavior, protecting their habitats, and surprisingly, send multiple volts of electricity in the water to electrocute them.
And a mild electric shock up my backside.
Turns out biologists use this method of electroshocking fish to sample fish populations and determine species composition. The jolt of electricity sends the fish flying into the air and then falling back into the water to float on the surface. Apparently, this is a much quicker way of getting things done. Now, before you go on commenting on how terrible all of this is, you'll probably be pleased to know that this doesn't actually hurt the fish. It only immobilizes them for a few minutes before they return back to their regular happy selves.
See ya. Off he goes.
This town is a paradise for any perfectionist. What we are looking at here is an unusual suburb in the Danish capital of Copenhagen. It appeared in the middle of the last century as part of an architectural experiment when a landscape designer wanted to see if he could make a village based on round plots instead of the regular square ones. The design is very unusual and original, but the only problem is that not all of the houses are placed along the road, which means that some locals have to leave their cars in the parking lot and walk home through an unusual green maze. Now let's head all the way over to India, where these street food vendors across cities are serving little fiery snacks fed directly into the mouths of customers. They're called fire pan, and they're often made of candy, chocolate, spices, and various fruit pieces. Vendors often claim that these snacks are for medicinal purposes, which help with soothing sore throats, but I'm not quite sure. It might just be a marketing ploy of some sorts. And if you're wondering whether it hurts or burns the mouth, it actually doesn't. The fire extinguishes as soon as your mouth closes due to the oxygen being cut off. Just close your mouth as soon as possible and you won't have any issues. For some people, there's nothing quite as disgusting as sharing a pool with multiple other people, especially strangers you don't really know.
All water parks are 50% to pee.
For others, however, it just seems like the most obvious choice. For example, the architects who designed this housing complex in China decided to connect all of the houses around one long single interconnected pool shared by all of the residents living there. Judging by statistics of public pool cleanliness, though, I think I'll pass on this one.
Wow, we found a lot of fecal bacteria in some of these pools.
If you ever find yourself in New York, make sure to get a glimpse of the Eternal Flame Falls. Yes, everything is exactly the way its name describes. There's a waterfall and a fire that just doesn't seem to ever go out. It just miraculously burns by itself as if by magic. Alas, there is no magic here, only natural gas which is emitted at a small cave at the foot of the waterfall. What's more is that the fire doesn't actually start by itself, it's lit by people. Occasionally the flame does go out, so the eternal flame has to be renewed. I guess it's not so eternal after all. On the Canary Islands exists a beach, where instead of sand, the entire coastline is covered in popcorn. Well, not actually. Try eating this popcorn and you might end up with a trip to the dentist, because these grains have nothing to do with the snack from the cinema. The popcorn starts off with red algae. Over the years, these plants accumulate calcium carbonate in their shells in the form of small balls. After the plant dies, the waves carry these rock formations into land. So not only are they inedible, but judging by the photos, you won't even be able to lie on them. Don't you agree? So I guess fish scales aren't just for fish. Judging by this video, they can also be found on top of waves. This rare phenomenon called a fish scale tide was captured on a coast in Zhejiang, China. What we're probably seeing here is two different tidal wave trains crossing into each other at perpendicular angles, creating this beautiful fish scale pattern. I don't know about you, but I find puddles pretty annoying. Apparently the English company Tarmac seemingly agreed with me, so they decided to come up with a solution. As a result, this permeable pavement solution was invented. It resembles a hard sponge and can absorb up to 4,000 liters of water in an area of just a few square miles in just 1 minute. At the same time, this pavement is so strong that even heavy cars can drive on it. This close-up shot proves that nature can be truly amazing. The Brazilian skipper caterpillar skin is so transparent that even its insides can be seen. The thin web of lines you see here are basically the respiratory system which it uses to breathe. The little branches are connected to the outside of the skin via little holes called the stigmata. And in order to keep breathing, it has to contract and expand its entire body continuously to keep the gas exchange going. Here's a quick heads up, always be careful when opening figs, because very often there are hundreds of insects living inside. The thing about figs is that they usually have flowers growing inside them, which offers a nice breeding space for insects to crawl in and lay their eggs. But luckily for you, this nasty surprise only happens when you decide to open up wild figs, because the store-bought variety is self-pollinating with no extra filling. Have you ever wondered how seals are able to spend so much time underwater? They're not exactly fish, and they don't have the gills to breathe in water to survive, so how does it actually work? Well, just like humans, they too breathe in through their nose.
Okay, deep breath, deep breath.
The only real difference is that a seal's body produces myoglobin, a special protein that allows them to store oxygen in their muscles without clogging them up. But this doesn't last forever, so every half an hour, they're forced to come visit these little holes in the ice to collect fresh air. And that's why when people hunt seals, they usually stand at open holes with a metal spear ready to catch their prized seal meat. Have you ever cracked open an egg only to find two little twins floating around in the bowl? Twin eggs usually happen when a hen's ovaries involuntarily release two egg cells at the same time. Her body then treats these two egg cells as one, and slowly adds on all the ingredients to make one single fully formed egg, just before releasing it into the world and ready for your frying pan. Delicious scrambled eggs, anyone? Although there are many fish and other fish-like creatures in the ocean, every now and then underwater cameras tend to capture something so unusual it can hardly fall under the fish category. The Spanish dancer sea slug uses its flaps to work against each other, which allows them to move so fluidly in the ocean. Funnily enough, it also has the same movements and color, which gives the appearance of those Spanish flamenco dancers you always see in Spain. With infertility on the rise, it's no surprise that a German team of nanoscientists developed this nano-robot. This little guy was created in the form of a tiny metal helix, which grabs hold of a lazy sperm cell and helps to push it in the right direction using a rotating magnetic field. The cell is then delivered to the egg, leading to fertilization and hopefully a newborn baby. It's already well established that elephant tusks are made of ivory and are extremely valuable, but what exactly are rhino horns made of? Does it grow as part of the skull? Is it just a big bone growing out of its head? Turns out it's actually just a compacted mass of hair that keeps growing over time, but not as fast as our hair and nails. So yes, every single rhino is born with a mohawk growing on its head. Could you imagine not having a brain? Well, the Black Sea hare doesn't have to imagine. Instead of a brain, these gigantic sea slugs have a large network of interconnected neurons, which are continuously growing and expanding as they learn new experiences, eventually becoming smarter and smarter over time. Apparently, this farm has the most fashionable sheep in town. I mean, it's not every day you see such brightly colored coats. But they didn't get that way by themselves. The farmer who owns this flock got so fed up of people stealing his sheep that he decided to paint them all red to make them easily identifiable in case they get stolen again. And apparently, tourists seem to love them. Most people don't usually associate graveyards with beauty, but at this cemetery in Hawaii stands a magnificently tall monkey pod tree that spreads its branches over the nearby graves, almost as if to serve as a protective shield from the elements of nature or something like that. Not sure about you, but that looks pretty beautiful to me. Now, if you've made it this far, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch up with you in the next one.